This could be my part two after, my work industry is number 40. uh, to kind of explain to you a bit that suffering from species alienation, an incredible disappointment and disconnection from the species I share DNA with, is and how it's part of my grand unification theory, which explains what I've gone through, is, being bullied at Lordco or having my human rights violated there is when you feel that being bullied, because I grew up in neighborhoods with bullies. I grew up in homes with bullies. And, it affects anxiety levels. It affects objectivity in thought patterns. And this reflected in the past when I was at my worst under different diagnoses. But, and of course, you can get depressed when eventually, like, you expect people to do the right thing and they never do, even though they claim to understand. But the magical monetary paradigm disconnects them from the reality of it, and they remain homo communia who suffer from HsD, which makes it that when they are now at 99.99% at levels where they will never regain the higher functions of their brains, these people, primates, you that I share DNA with, is yes, of course, I can never expect to have days where I don't suffer from species alienation triggers. But like with today and the other things the other day, like when there's a few things that accumulate in one place, or just they're an intense event compared to the average events of the days, as they're always events, because I'm always an Homo sapien and you're always the Homo communia, and our interactions are always scientifically measured as being what I say in my explanations, and very well defined by HsD, is yeah, it makes me kind of worry, like, who's following me. Are some of these teenagers going to be, when I'm in the pool trying to relax, going to vandalize my vehicle or do something that they think is funny and they think is justified. And again, we've never changed as a species. This is pretty much it. If I'm different from the norm, or anybody else is in any way, you will victimize them as the norm. It's just you've never gone through your maturation process as a species, not just as individuals. So it's 99.99% of you that are suffering from HsD. Enjoy intellectual laziness, support it in others, because it makes you feel better about your bad choices. Don't go through your maturation process, especially, don't succeed also if you even want to try. I mean, who's the role models? You don't even have the critical thinking to figure that out. Is, my interactions with you will always be, can I trust or not trust this community now? Because, people spread this HsD on Facebook, for example, these behaviors that are subhuman. People don't aspire to become human because it's not required. And even if they did, even if they insisted, then they'd live a life like me, which is, who wants to live this? Who wants to apply their education from post-secondary institutions, but also from being a lifelong learner independently outside of that, and the common sense of linking all this together as a systems thinker, to feel so alone and so disconnected and so obviously aware that things are not going to get better during my lifetime, they're going to get worse, and that as many human thinking tools as I develop, it's still not going to change things, right? It's not going to reverse. I'm not suddenly going to land on the perfect human thinking tool that I can reverse the Anthropocene that you're causing with it. I can't do that. I can't. I'm not the high evolutionary. I invented a machine with somebody else's help and plagiarized them. And then, I can suddenly evolve all of you in this gigantic machine. Like, that's not the way it works. It's about choices made over generations, hundreds of years, thousands of years, that led you to the point now that, it's too late for you as a species, and I was born in this time. And there's plenty of people that develop some awareness. What a horrible time to be born in. It's almost like everybody should take their parents to court. Starting this year is like every parent should be the butler of their kids now, if they're dumb enough to bring them into the world during this Anthropocene. Is they should kind of become butlers where they have time off to kind of learn about how to reconnect with reality, and maybe at some point their child will be able to make a human connection with their parent, although they haven't learned to do it themselves. and maybe release their parents from being a butler by bringing into the world on such a horrible, horrible decision to do it at this time of epoch of not just us as a species, but what we've done to the rest of the natural world. Like I'm in the bathroom, I paid already for a pretzel, a drink, the pool that I haven't gone to yet, but it's discounted. So sometimes I pay a little bit early in case, I run late trying to finish my leftovers from the shelter so it doesn't go to waste. And it was delicious, actually. It smelled great. And I got anxiety still, right? And it's a little bit more today because of the Lordco behaviors from those kids that believe that that's the limit of becoming human. And kids, I could say kids for like 60-year-olds, really. I mean, for me, that's so immature. And so the anxiety of like, I'm just washing one pan so I don't waste my leftovers. And I leave everything clean. And I try, but and hardly anybody uses that bathroom. But I still want to read to relax my bowels so they go a little bit, right? And I have to relax. I don't have my own bathroom. But, I'm leaving everything clean. I'm double checking always. Don't forget anything. Everything's clean when I go. And I'm getting more anxiety just on days like today when the triggers of species alienation based on your behaviors, especially escalating when I defend my human rights and can explain it in a human way, is it gets worse, right? So this is what it's like. So again, when I suffer from species alienation, it explained in the past why I had the depressions, why I had different types of thought patterns that would make a psychiatrist think something. But again, the species alienation that I suffer from, because you suffer from HsD, explains everything. It's the top, it's the grand unification theory that explains my life and your cells as a species I share DNA with. So again, it's a great advantage. It tells me a lot, so I can make better choices to minimize my triggers, but also to, and there are limits, like I'll still defend my human rights. I can't not do that. I become one of you. But I understand a lot more now, so that's why deep depressions are no longer an issue. Even if times get a lot worse than this, for me it's really like, oh, I didn't not predict this. And again, when times get worse, there is a scale where we could see that my life will get better, in the sense that when people realize that somebody with my skill sets has value, but right now you don't realize I have value because I'm a bad sheep compared to you, the sheep that caused all the problems. But when you realize my mind works better, my body works better, and I have a sense of humor through it all, and creativity and respect of others, and then trust is built, even though I'm not specifically trying to get that trust developed, I'm just acting normally as myself over time, and it's consistent, and people kind of say, oh, I could trust my intuition, and I can explain what their intuition is, but they can't, on how they trust me at that point over time. During that time, my life will be a little bit easier. But again, how easier will it be when times that affect everybody are hard? Like when it's super, super hot, for example, right? And I want to share water I have that's healthy to drink and not hoard it to myself because I'm not like you. Then I'll still have limited water. It'll still be hard for me. So that's kind of the difference between all of you suffering from HsD and me suffering from species alienation. There are various patterns that can be detected and explained in my own life, not just the origins of our species, but the origin of my life at the beginning and now and in the future, and same thing, right? Because this theory affects a phenomenon that you suffer from, but that I live among you, and it explains our interactions. It explains the life I've had. It explains the species at the anthropological level. So it's gratifying, but there's no magic cure to that. There's just kind of advantages that I may or may not choose to apply based on, my priorities at the time, which I can explain, but nobody ever asks. And one of them is to defend my humanity, to not compromise my human rights, to be able to reflect my ability to practice critical thinking and keep practicing it, because it'll be useful to you even though you don't recognize it, you don't see it, you don't acknowledge it, but also that critical thinking it's a way to keep the brain healthy, because otherwise, you guys don't use it and you barely need a brain this size. Well, I want to keep my brain this size functioning in a systems kind of way.